Okay, let me keep going. I've probably already covered this. I'll just read it out. Only after I experienced traveling back and forth, like I said, multiple times to South Africa in my early 20s, that probably by my late 20s, I was probably traveling alone because like I said, I'm a quick study and I learn as I go. Before I ever would take up before I'd ever take a group, and I used to take groups out in my earlier years when I had the grace to do it, but I would make sure I would always go first so that I would learn the culture, learn the airport and the laws and everything, so that when I took a group in, I would already know what to do so that we're not all stumbling around and it's a horrible experience, for the people I'm bringing in. Let me read the scripture. I wrote this down. I love it in the Message Bible. Mark 6:7-8 said, Jesus called the 12 to him and sent them out in pairs. He gave them authority and power to deal with the evil opposition. He sent them off with these instructions. Don't think you need a lot of extra equipment for this. You are the equipment. I love that. No special appeals for funds. Keep it simple and no luxury inns. Get a modest place and be content there until you leave. If you're not welcome and not listened to, quietly withdraw. Quietly withdraw. Don't make a scene. Shrug your shoulders and be on your way. That's the Message Bible. This just quickened something. Teresa Cook and I went to Zimbabwe several years ago, and oh my goodness, we stay. And I'm okay staying with people. There's times I probably prefer to stay in a hotel, but if it's in like Africa and they don't have the money, I am not some prima donna. I will stay where they put me. And so we did, and they would have power outages. They would have the water wouldn't work, and you're right before a meeting, or you've just washed your hair and you can't rinse it out, and you're trying to get ready for a meeting and you're the keynote speaker, things like that, or the food that they serve you and the being in someone's home, it can be a real shock. Of course, I already knew Africa because I lived there, so it was like I didn't miss a beat, but it was I've always been one that I turn things like that into an adventure. I'm like, okay, this is going to make great testimony material, so let's do this. And so I turn it, but if you've never experienced that, it can be a real shock on your system, and it can throw you, for when you're getting ready to speak or whatever you're getting ready to do. So that's just the first question. We've gone 16 minutes. I might have to break this up into more than just one. But let me do the second one. Should I get an international calling plan? Okay, this is a great question. Yes, but shop around and use the modern tech that's available to us, like WhatsApp. I mean, you can use that free and text back and forth internationally. It's secure. There's Skype, and that's another good go-to. I have a plan with Verizon where it's $10 a day for so much that you use, and I find with the text and the internet use and things like that and phone calls, I can keep it down to pretty much what they allot for that, and you can set that plan yourself. So you can and it's $10, or if you probably do more than I do, then it might be a little bit more than $10. But it's worked good for me, except when I was in, I think, Belize and Guatemala with David and Gina Hunter. And I just thought, they told me, yes, it's for international. So I went in there and I was using it, and then I get home and I find out, no, it wasn't usable in South America or Central America. Thank you very little. It cost me, but you live and learn, So now I don't care if I know it's a country. I call them and I get online and I make sure that it's under that plan of the $10. Otherwise, it will cost you big time. They'll work with you, and every phone company will help you get a plan that works for you. So I would, yes, I would do that, because it's doable these days. How frequent should I travel? Excellent question. Do you have a family? I go back to that. Family is your first ministry. It's the most important thing. Everyone is different, and then I would ask you, you know, how often are you invited out? I mean, how much are you on the road and you have children? You know, it would, and are you in a local church? Do you pastor and you travel, or are you planted in a church and you travel out from that church? A lot of things come into play. For me, I tried to be home to and away to. If I was traveling, sometimes I didn't travel in the month, but on rare occasions I might be gone 3. But here was my core values, and I think you need to know what your core values are. My core values were, as a pastor, and I was always in a church where Danny was pastoring or pastoring our own church. And so I knew that I was only as good as what I could produce in my local church. You know, if I'm going to go out and preach revelations and things, then I need to be able to have a prototype that I can point to say, this is not theory. This is not some theory I'm preaching. This is something I have put into action. This is something I've produced. And, you know, and my local church, you know, it plays out like this, you know, or this or that. Now, I know local churches kind of changed today. It's not like it was maybe 10 years ago. A lot of people are meeting in homes and doing different things like that. All I'm saying to you is I really feel it's good to be grounded. And another thing that I felt strongly about, some don't feel as strongly as I do, that as a prophetic person, I felt it was important for me to be planted somewhere and to have a point of reference, you know. And at the time it was our own church. I mean, we were pastoring, but that there was somewhere the buck stopped, you know, so that there is a trust factor when I go in somewhere, you know, that I'm not some loose cannon, and I have a history and I have a track record, and people, you know, can feel safe with me, and that was important to me. So as far as, you know, how frequent I would travel, like I said, for me, I tried to keep it maybe 2 weeks out. You know, that might not be the full week. That just might be 2 weekends. You know, and you know, at least 1 to 2 weeks in my local church. And if I felt like we were going through a strenuous time, I wouldn't go. You know, I wouldn't accept an invitation. I would be there to help bring the breakthrough. You know, if God spoke specifically to me, absolutely. You know, so and that's international. Now local, you know, or statewide, I could go and get back real quick. So I wasn't as concerned about that. Still kind of the same guidelines, but just not as concerned, because you're gone for an extended period, like 10 days usually was the minimum if I did international travel, or when I did international travel, or, you know, 2 weeks, somewhere around there. So can your help handle that? Can your husband handle that? Can your children, most importantly, what stages, what ages are they at? Are they going through difficult times? Can they afford to have mommy gone, you know, for extended periods of time? That really is the deciding factor for me. You know, when I came back to the States, my children were getting older, so I didn't feel, you know, in some aspects they needed me as much hands-on, you know, if I was going out and coming back within the United States, or if I went out on some international meetings, you know. But yeah, it was always about my family and my children. Okay, so you know, like I said, a lot of those things come into play, and you have to come up with your own value system. But I have to tell you this, you know, it takes it out of you, and you need a place to refill, and you need a place to be just Dina, not the woman of God who's brought in, you know, the word, you know. I'm not saying that about me, but you know what I'm saying. You know, when you go in, you know, you're brought in and this and that. You know, that's why I always say it was so good, you know, having children. They kept you humble. You know, they'll just see you and tell you, you know, for who you are. Your husband too. But your local church needs to be a safe place, or your local fellowship, whatever that looks like, needs to be a place where you go and not necessarily minister out. You know, sometimes when I come home, it was like I'd get up and share, you know, so I could impart what was imparted to me, because I didn't just go impart. I always received when I was there what they had, and I would impart it, because that to me was something powerfully apostolic that not everybody does, you know, that I wanted to do. And so I'd impart. But as far as maybe teaching, you know, when I just get back, I would sit back. I would allow myself to be poured into. there was no special treatment. There was no, let's whatever. I was just mom. I was Dina. I was, and I didn't ever take on the title of pastor or prophetess. That's not me. So it was just Dina, But I think you need that grounding when you go home. And I think you need that safe place you can just go be you, and you don't have to pour out to anybody. There's no demands being put on you to where you feel like you have to give out. You can just be you and just take in, what to refresh yourself. Okay, I probably have gone as long as I need to go. It's been, 23 minutes. Let's see here. This next one is going to require some time. I love it. It is, how do I know when I'm being used or manipulated? I want to do that one, but you know what? I'm going to stop. I'm going to make this the first installment. We're going to just start something here called Because You Asked. And actually, I want to encourage you. I'm just, I thought of this yesterday. If you have questions that you want to ask that I could do one of these little videos for, I would be more than happy to consider it. So just, I'm going to post it on Facebook and probably YouTube. And so all you need to do is just put it in the, in the comments. And I would love to look at those and see what some of the things are that, you would love, maybe to hear me speak on, or to, questions you would like to ask. So, because you asked. So installment 1 for should a woman travel alone internationally? Okay, so I'll come back and we'll do the second installment.